Fat Dag is a Weight Watchers leader in Indianapolis, Indiana. However, the views and opinions expressed during this podcast are his own. They do not represent the views of Weight Watchers. And now, here's your host and wingman, Fat Dag.
I am your host, Fat Dag. You're listening to Wise Advice. My weight loss journey failed when I focused on how. It wasn't until I switched my focus to why that I truly transformed myself. Join the show on the web at fatdag.com and follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Wise Advice. Send in your comments, your questions, your celebrations. I'll include them as part of the show. But before we dive in, remember, when you're out of points, stop eating points. Hey, I'm honored to be your wingman as we walk through this journey together because I believe in you. Hello, welcome to a very special episode number 162 of Wise Advice. This episode comes to you commercial free from the folks that who've stepped up as a wingman to become a patron of the show. The Linda, Victoria, Mitzi, Amy, Jennifer, Stella, Candy today alone stepped up. Thank you for keeping this episode commercial free. Glad to be here. We want to do something special tonight. I had a great talk today with the media company. Things are progressing quite nicely in that realm. I probably spent about maybe almost 4 hours today brainstorming and writing on walls and just continuing to draw out this entire plan of what we have built together. And I think a lot of times as we walk this journey, you know, we certainly know, and I say it in the opening of the show, is that my weight loss journey failed when I focused on how. It wasn't until I switched my focus to why that I truly transformed myself. And that was kind of the discussion today is I know why I'm doing the show. I know why I'm trying to build something great. I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I need someone who knows the how to help carry that piece forward. So as we're drawing on whiteboards, and you know, this whiteboard was really cool. It actually wrapped around a corner. It was curved. It was the coolest thing I ever saw. But as we're drawing on the whiteboard, I kept thinking, I know why this is important. You know, having real people with real inspiration who are in Connect daily, posting, who are in Connect, reaching out to other people. That is why we're here. We all know how to do this. There's no question that we know the formula for losing weight. But we need a little bit of accountability. And as we find wingmen along the way, that's what builds this community. That's why you're in the Wise Wingman Facebook group. That's why you're tuning in live on the show. It's amazing as we do this show every single night is to watch you guys interact with each other. You know, here we are, a whole group of strangers working the same journey, and we found a way to connect, and we can relate to each other. This particular episode, I want to do something a little different. We've done it before and gotten very, very good response from you guys that you like it when I just say, hey, there's no format. What's on your mind? What questions do you have? What can I answer? So that's the format for tonight's show. I put it out on Facebook before the show on the Fat Dag Facebook page and said, hey, what's your question? That way the show flows a little better. So if you're inclined to join in next time, make sure you're following the Facebook page. But Laura writes in with the first one. She says, I'm keeping within my weeklies, but I'm feeling a little lost without the blue dots to shoot for. Do you have any advice now that Freestyle makes the blue dot less desirable? Well, sure. So I agree with you. Now that Freestyle is rolled around and you have rollover points, you have your weekly points. So the blue dot range changed, right? It's now minus 10 to plus 3 will earn you a blue dot. Well, if you roll over 4 points and then you eat them, then you're out of the blue dot range, but you're still very much on plan. If you dig into your weeklies and eat rollovers in the same day, then you don't get the blue dot. I understand that. I completely get the mindset. And so I agree with you that at this point, the blue dot becomes a little less desirable for a 7-day streak. But what I mean by less desirable is that you still can eat healthy. You still can eat on plan. You still can do everything that you did to lose the weight. And so what you do is you focus more heavily on following the plan, using your dailies, using your weeklies, using them in moderation, rolling over points, using them But what the blue dot does is the blue dot kind of helps you eat, in a somewhat of a kind of even pattern, let's just say. You're getting about the same amount of calories every single day. So now you're training your body to eat less, because typically we overfeed our bodies. And for me, I've been doing it my entire life. So the blue dot for me, that range just gets me eating nice and consistent every single week. Overeating leads to generally falling off the plan. The days that when I work the plan, if I save a day to eat all of my weeklies and all of my rollovers on the same day, sure, I can stay on plan doing it that way. But the reality is I'm reigniting the addictions. I'm refinding comfort in that, oh my God, I'm so full feeling. And all those things that when I'm at a normal height and body weight now, that they don't feel as good. Being at a goal weight feels way better than the feeling I used to get from being too full and overeating. So the blue dot range generally prevents that from happening. Now, once in a while, you're going to have those rollovers. You're going to have days where you're really just, you're going to an event and you want to use those points, and you have the flexibility and the freedom to do that. The caution you need to understand, though, is that, if you eat, chicken breast for lunch and a chicken breast for dinner, and then the next day you eat 60, 70 points, even though you could probably work it into your plan, is you're doing that spike on your body. And then you're, again, like I said earlier, you're reigniting the addiction. So continue to focus on the blue dots. I'm going to stay pretty true to stay in that blue dot range to the best of your ability. But more importantly, stay on the plan and just continue to focus on changing your eating habits. And that's what the blue dots do for you. So, Laura, thanks for the question for sure. Deborah asks, how do you wrap your head around the fact that there is no finish line? As I go through this journey, that thought really scares me. Well, Deborah, I can tell you my opinion on this. There actually is a finish line. That's been my mantra from day one. That is what I professed, when I first started this journey. I'm a big believer, and there absolutely is a finish line in this journey. That finish line is goal. That finish line is lifetime. And when you reach it, you simply at that point say, okay, I have a new goal. I have a new finish line. So let's rephrase it for a second. If I said to you, hey, Deborah, you want to go for a run after work? What's the first thing you would ask me? Hey, Deborah, would you like to go for a walk? Hey, Deborah, let's hop in the car and let's go for a ride. Every single time I asked you the question, you would follow it up with, where are we going? How far are we running? How far are we walking? What time will we be back? You wouldn't go start running a race if they didn't tell you where the finish line was. So what do? You just go out and run around, and then at some point someone goes, okay, that's it, we're done? No, it doesn't work that way. So I'm a firm believer, and it's my opinion. There are some very intelligent people who disagree with me on this, but this is what I use to get to goal. There absolutely is a finish line. The finish line is goal. I ran as fast as I could to get to goal. And then when I got there, I put a new finish line ahead of me. I said, okay, this is a new race. This whole new race is called Lifetime. I've been running this one now for 18 months. I love it. I love every piece about it, but I'm so glad I completed the last one. I don't want to run a race, the same race, for the rest of my life. At some point when you start running, you start at the 5K distance. You cross that finish line, and then you go for a half marathon. Okay. And then you go for a full marathon, or maybe you start doing some speed, but every single time you have to cross a finish line before you can set a new goal. So that is my answer on how do you wrap your head around the fact that there is no finish line. You say there absolutely is, and you move it once you cross it. You reset and you get a whole new finish line, and you keep moving. So that is how I do it. There's a weight loss finish line, as Tammy says, and there is a lifetime finish line, and they're different, but they exist. Next up, Mandy writes in, and she says, this is live from Facebook. She says, I would like to know more about your Nokia Health tracker and the scales. I'm seriously considering switching from Fitbit to that for my husband and I. How does the battery hold up on the trackers? Mandy, thanks for this. Thanks for the setup. As you know, Nokia Health and I, very good friends. I've been using back when they were at Withings before. I've had this scale for, I don't know, probably a dozen years or so. And, I've absolutely loved it. I weigh myself every single day. It goes to Twitter automatically. It goes to Facebook automatically. It goes to the front of my website automatically as I use a third-party app to make all that happen. And the fitness tracker is amazing. So when they sent me one to try out just to see if I'd like it, I honestly, I wasn't interested in it as a step tracker. I love the scale. The scale is my favorite product. I was content with that. And so they sent it to me, and I have it here with you. And if you're, obviously those of you on Facebook, you'll be able to see it, but the rest of you won't. But it looks like a watch. That's my favorite piece about it, is it looks like a watch, and it has a step tracker built right in, and so it counts the steps. And the coolest thing about it is the battery seriously does last 28 days. It's incredible. And so that's one of the issues I had with some of my other products is I didn't feel like charging them every single night. That was annoying to me. And so not only was it annoying is the reason it was annoying is more often than not, I'd go out for a walk and the battery would be dead, or I'd leave it in the charger. And the old adage is if you go for a walk and you don't bring your step tracker, do the steps still count? Well, yeah, of course they do. Your body still tracks them, but the Nokia Health Steel HR gives me my heart rate, but I can wear it for an entire month. It's awesome. So I like that. And I actually believe the company is committed to our health and taking care of us. So that is a fun reason as well. There's a couple different scales out there. I have the Nokia Health Body Cardio Scale, which gives me a pulse wave velocity in the morning, gives me my body fat, measures it through my feet, gives me my heart rate, tells me the weather. It's a cool product. And so there's a couple versions out there, and so you can find which one. Maybe some of you don't need all of that data, so you can find a price point that works for you. But huge fan of Nokia Health. But I'm also a fan of anything that you're going to do out there that gets you motivated to get to goal is a good thing. And I put a post out there the other day on Connect talking about the idea that, my step goal on my tracker is not 10,000 steps a day. My step goal on my tracker is, I think it's set to 3,000 or 4,000 steps a day. And the reason that is because that is something I can do every single day. It doesn't matter. Now, I know there's people out there, again, that can do 10,000 steps every single day. They can do it. I can hit my 3,000 every day, but I try to make sure I get them before noon, and that's kind of my goal. But there are days where that just doesn't happen for me. And so therefore I was like, okay, at 8:00 at night, I'll go do a little bit more to get 3,000, but I'm not going to miss it by 7,000 and not do it. So I'm in it for the attendance goal and the fact that I can wear this thing for an entire month, and then go into the dashboard on the computer and look at all the data. It's just, it's a huge win. So Mandy, thanks for the setup. I really appreciate that. It wasn't the intent to make this a commercial for Nokia Health, but folks from Nokia Health, if you're listening, call me. Jan writes in and says, hey, I'm really nervous about being on maintenance and succeeding there for 6 weeks. I don't know why it bothers me so much. Jan, I agree. And so that was the same issue I had, is that you're right. You get to goal, and in a lot of us mentally, you kind of just have that emotional release of hitting to goal. And it feels so amazing when you hop on the scale and you don't want to lose weight. There's nothing like it in the world. I've told you that more than once. You believe that now because I've told it to you so many times. Hopping on the scale in a non-weight loss mode is incredible. So when you get to goal, there's an emotional release that happens the day you step on the scale. And then they turn around and we say, okay, for 6 weeks, don't you dare gain 2 pounds. But that's not really how it works. The weeks of maintenance are for you to determine how many points you can bring back into your day and maintain your body weight. As you're working maintenance, generally speaking, we don't care what the weight entry is for those next 6 weeks. So what we want you to do is we want you to come in every week and we want you to weigh in. We want you to adjust your points back up out of weight loss mode into maintenance mode, but we're not going to penalize you for not understanding what your body's going to do when you reach goal. So it's a simple mindset is you come in, so you make goal, you adjust your points up a little bit, up to 6 is the range, you figure out where you need, and you start adding 3 points in a day, you come in and weigh in. Now, if your weight continues to go down, then you add more points in. If your weight goes up, then you subtract some points out. And you just, for 6 weeks of maintenance, you have to figure out how many points a day your body needs to maintain. At the end of the 6 weeks, you'll have mastered that process. So it's not the first couple of weigh-ins you need to stress about it. You don't really need to stress about any of them, but what you do is you just figure out, it takes you 6 weeks for you to figure out how to work this new body that you built. It's an amazing body, and it's an amazing journey when you get to goal. Ditch the pressure, live your life, just keep working the plan. Nothing really changes. The only thing that changes is just the daily point allowance that you get, and it just adjusts up a little bit. Sue writes in, says from Facebook, she says, I'm still struggling with Freestyle. I've tried to adjust to it, but I still haven't been able to. With Smart Points, I felt like I could do it forever. I feel like I'm on a restrictive diet on Freestyle. Any tips to help me get on board with Freestyle? Sue, my number one tip for you, helping you get on Freestyle, is to let you know that I was there with you. I actually, as a leader, again, my opinion, as a leader, when they announced it, I wasn't happy. I sat in the room. I lost all my weight using Smart Points. I lost 91 pounds in about 6 months and maintained it for an entire year. And now you're going to change the program on me? I wasn't really interested in a change at that point. So you had to get to the point where you say, okay, I have to trust the people who've made the plan. So it doesn't mean that the plan is perfect for me. It just means I trust the folks who developed it. And then now I need to figure out how to use the plan they've given me to adjust my new journey and maintain it. So again, at first I was just like you. I wasn't exactly thrilled. It did feel like I was on a chicken and turkey diet. But what I've come to find out now is that's not how it works for me. Is now, this morning was a great example. We went to the hospital, and we had already I had a light snack for breakfast. We get to the hospital, and I had eggs because why not? They were 0 points. But before, just the opposite. I wouldn't have eaten because I wasn't going to track the points for them. So therefore, I was able to have a good meal this morning on top of it. So for me, now that I've adjusted, it's a lot more freeing. So now, how do I get you to make that shift? Is it's a little bit of trust, it's a little bit of faith, it's a little bit of relying on each other to learn some tips and tricks along the way. That's what the accountability team is for. That's what Connect is for. That's what the Wise Wingman Facebook group is for. But as you follow the plan, and as you continue to work the plan, you will start learning things about the journey, and you will completely change the way you eat. You'll start building a foundation of healthier eating. I can tell you in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've added things to my plate that I've never, ever tried before, ever. Now I'm trying them, and I'm like, okay, I could eat this. And so now I'll slowly start mixing that in. But the things that I'm trying are things that are healthy that I was refusing to eat prior to that. So you can do this, Sue. I know you can. Trust me, I was one of the biggest critics when it came out, and I've switched because it took me a couple months, but I worked it and I like it. From Facebook again, Sharon writes in and says, okay, a plateau, is it physical or is it my fault? Well, Sharon, that's a question that we're going to have to dig a little deeper in to find out what's going on. There is a valid term as a plateau. It absolutely does exist. But many of us, we misdiagnose it. Many of us, stop tracking. We stop working out. We start taking 1 or 2 extra bites of something. We don't track it, and we call that a plateau. So here is my suggestion on whether you think it's a plateau or not. If your weight is staying consistent, first off, if you're making healthy choices and you're working out, celebrate that. That's the reason to win. right? But let's go one step further and let's say, no, I actually still want to lose some weight. And so would you commit to sending your accountability buddy a screenshot, a picture of everything you eat for the next 4 weeks? If you will commit to that, and at the end of 4 weeks, you weigh the exact same, then yeah, you're probably on a plateau. But more often than not, when I see folks who come to me and say they're on a plateau, one of my first questions is, can I see your tracker? And then generally it's followed up with, I'm not so sure. So there is a valid term as a plateau. It does exist, but my experience and from what I see is that generally speaking, we start this plan on fire. We really are attacking it. We know what we want to do. And then, the difference between maintaining your weight and losing weight is only 6 points a day. And it's we just talked about that in maintenance. For some people, it's not even that much. So if you're one of those people that as you're losing your weight, if you're down 0.2, down 0.4 every single week, but consistently did it, then more than likely, when you get to goal, you're not going to be able to add 6 points in a day. If you were losing an average of 2 pounds a week, you may be able to add up to 6 points into your day. It's really going to depend on your body. That's why we give you the maintenance to figure that number out. But so if you're at that mindset or that mode where you're down 0.2, 0.4 consistently, and you're not tracking that extra, whatever, not tracking the ketchup or not tracking that extra bite or not tracking the office brownie, well, then you're bringing in 4 to 6 points, and that generally is what we call a plateau, but we refuse to make the admittance that that is what it is. So that's what I'd say, Sharon. If you're willing to commit to sending your tracker every day for the next 4 weeks to an accountability buddy, do that, and then tell me at the end of the 4 weeks whether you're on a plateau or you just didn't log everything you had. So Don writes in, says, do you limit yourself on certain foods such as your fruits? I'm having no problems on Freestyle, staying within my points, but not really seeing a lot of results. Well, sure, Don, right? We give you the food as 0 points because we want you to gravitate to them more so than anything else. So it's that foundation of healthy eating. It helps you build better choices as you move forward through your journey, but you can still overeat on some of them. Much of the stuff that's a 0 point food is not food that we tend to overeat. We don't, usually when you hear someone that goes on a binge, it's usually they didn't dive face first into a bag of apples. That's not how it works. If we were craving apples our entire life and that was our number one snack, there's a good chance we wouldn't be where we're at today. So do I limit myself to an extent? I do. I know that, 5 chicken breasts for dinner is probably not ideal. Sure, it's all 0 points. The reality is I know that's not going to work for me. Last night we had food and I had a pork chop. Actually, it's not 0 points, but I had a pork chop and, I wanted an extra piece and I very easily could have had points for it. But I also knew, I'm like, I've already had a full one. So I just took a little nibble off another one and moved on and put it in the tracker and did that. So you have to get to the point, Don, where you can start recognizing what content feels like. So many times we eat until we're full. And at that point, you ever notice when you eat until you're full, 10 to 15 minutes later, you feel worse than when you were full? It's the same concept. You eat until you're content. 15 minutes later, you'll get that full feeling that you're looking for. Candace says, I'm a little short on willpower this week. I can't resist the stuff that isn't in line with my goal. I usually go to Connect for motivation, but it isn't working for me right now. I need to dig deeper. Do you have any advice? Candace, the first step in this is the fact that you recognize it, which is huge. Number 2 is that you're connected to an accountability group that understands you. And number 3 is you voiced it. So thank you for all that. I don't believe you're short on willpower because willpower does not allow you to check into the Facebook group. Lack of willpower does not allow you to comment in the way you did. I think it's just a matter of focus. I think what I always do is I ask myself every single time as I was losing the weight is do I want this? Does it align with my goal or does it conflict with my goal? And you have to ask that question often. You can't ask it in the morning and then set out for the middle of your day. You have to ask it in the middle of the day. And sometimes you have to ask it in the middle of a meal. Does this extra chicken breast align with my goal, or does it hinder my goal? So that's the number one question I ask often. And that's the question that usually leads me to putting that next bite away and saying, yeah, I'm done. Right now, this doesn't align with my goal. Getting on Connect, I understand the motivation that's in there. You have to find people who you can relate to on your journey. We're here for you. Plug into the Wise Wingman Facebook group. Go to wisewingman.com. It'll auto-launch you into the Facebook group. Find some folks. That group is amazing. They do a lot of great work. So continue to tune in. Candace, you can do this. This is not, you've got what it takes. I can read it in your words because you're here, checked in. If you didn't have willpower, you wouldn't have made the comment in the first place. Mary says, there's been a lot of talk about setting your goal weight to the highest allowable weight for your height according to Weight Watchers. Then people get the free e-tools and then go on to get their personal goal weight. Also, lots of people want a buffer between their goal weight and personal goal weight. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So, Mary, I don't know. My thoughts on this is goal for me is a feeling. It's not a number on the scale. Goal for me is I wake up, I put on my medium shirt, I put on my 31-inch pants, I hop on my scale to get an idea for where I'm at. But if you notice as I weigh in every day, I go from, depending on the day, from 185 to 195, somewhere in that range. I don't care about that. I know I'm fully in control of this journey. So regardless of where you set your number, I get the concept for doing it. I get the notion where you set it high, lose another 10 pounds, and then you can buffer around. If that works for you, go get it. But I caution you to think that you're probably, at that point, you're probably not really at your goal, right? If you're truly at your goal weight, you can set it to a point where you're like, this is where I want to live for the rest of my life. And so many people were afraid of that penalty of having to pay, when the reality is that's an accountability tool. And that continues to remind you at that point that, hey, I have bigger goals and I want to get this done. I think one of the other dangers potentially is sometimes you've heard the term so often that don't let a slip turn into a slide. So if you set your goal weight, let's just use some raw numbers. If you set your goal weight, at 150 pounds, let's say, and you hit it, and then you continue down to 130, well, mentally knowing that you can gain 20 pounds, that could very easily cause you to not be able to put the brakes on when you get to 150. But having, and that's why I weigh myself every day, is because I want to keep that accountability. I usually just want to be accountable to the number. And I tell you guys too, don't worry about if you see my scale auto tweet and you see it post on Facebook, for the most part, don't worry about the number. When you should start getting concerned is when you don't see me weigh in, because that's when I've mentally checked out. But in any event, so that's why I do that. But in any event, if you're now, hopping on the scale, regularly, and it is slowly creeping up, and you can go up another 10 to 20 pounds, it will be very difficult because now you're building bad behaviors back in that put those 20 pounds back on, and that bad behavior is going to be very difficult to reverse when you have to start paying. And a lot of folks at that point just skip the meeting altogether because they refuse to pay, and then we know where that gets us. Quitting the program gets you a new start date. That's all it gets you. Almost 100% of the time, if you quit, what you get for quitting is a new start date down the road. More often than not, that new start date comes at a brand new all-time high starting weight as well. So if you don't want a new start weight and you don't want a new start date, then set your goal where you're happy, stick with it, and get it done. April says, so how do you count the fruit used in smoothies? I know you have to count them in smoothies, but how many points are they usually when a piece of fruit is used this way? I want to have one here and there, but not sure how to go about this and what is their point value. April, obviously, one of the concepts is, this is debated back and forth, but generally the concept is if you take an apple, put it in a blender and drink it, you should track the points for whatever the apple is. Now, there's two different schools of thought on that, but the concept behind it is it takes considerably longer to eat an apple than it does to drink a blended apple. So if we, knowing that all food has calories, you just can't put 40 apples in a blender and drink it in 2 seconds and call that a meal. The calorie at that point and the sugar is probably not ideal. So if you blend it, we want you just to be accountable for what you're doing because you're not going to, it would take you forever to eat 40 apples. But, you mix them up and you could drink it pretty quickly. So that same level of calorie input takes longer by physically eating it. So therefore, at that point, because we'd rather have you switch to making that transition to choosing the healthy food more often, we offer it as a 0-point item to entice you to go grab it. And I said, if you're drinking it, then, it's just, you could drink it real quick and then go grab a snack to go with it. But if you're eating an apple, there's a good chance you're not going to eat an apple and then go right for the brownie at that point either. So, some people, some people just don't track it no matter what. As we always say is let your scale be the guide. If you're happy with the result you're getting, doing it the way you're doing it, move on. If you're putting your fruit in a blender and you're not tracking it, and that week you weigh in less, and next week you put your fruit in a blender and you weigh in less, then whatever you're doing is working, and keep doing that. But if you put all your fruit in a blender and the scale's going the wrong direction, then at maybe that point, hold yourself accountable to the tracker and make some adjustments in there. But give it a couple weeks to make sure it's really what you're doing. It's the actions, over time that are causing the results that you're looking or not looking for. Linda says, do you think, our emotional eating stems from our built-in childhood response? Like every time a baby cries, someone sticks a bottle in your mouth. I often think that's why we turn to food when we're stressed. What's your opinion? Well, Linda, it's an interesting thought, but I'm pretty sure every single person on the planet was given a bottle. So that's not really the answer, right? For some of us, it may be, but every child I know that screams gets a bottle, and some of them grew up to be healthy, fit adults along the way. So, it's an interesting topic. There's some probably, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, so I can't give you, an official, all I can do is give you an opinion, and as you know, when I give you an opinion, it's just me, and there's a bunch of smart people who can disagree, and there's a bunch of smart people who can agree. So I think our emotional eating comes from a lot of different things that make up who we are. And what's cool about it is we are strong enough to make a difference and make a change. And so you just have to recognize that. Recognize that, when you're in an emotional state that you turn to eating. And so find a way to add some other response. So if, a good analogy is, if all of a sudden you have a really, really bad day at work and you come home and eat, then the next time you have a bad day, you need to have an auto response that's not food. You need to plan this in ahead so that you can go. So if I go to work and this happens, when I come home, I read a book 100% of the time. Come home, read a book. Bad day at work, come home, read a book. Bad day at work, come home, read a book. And now you're training yourself to respond to that stress with a different answer than food. But if you come home from stress and you don't have an auto replacement, then you go back to your default. You have to change your default to get this in. And our default is food. And it doesn't matter if we were bottle fed as a child or not. And, a couple more here. Sammy on Sammy 33333, which is Tammy. She's wrote it on Twitter. Says, "Hey, I'm thinking about not looking at the scale anymore and just having the receptionist let me know when I hit the 5-pound milestone. As good as it feels when the number goes down, when it goes up, it ruins my day, and sometimes more than that. Do you have any thoughts on this?" Sammy, here's my thought. You weigh the exact same whether you hop on the scale or not. Whether you know the number or not, you weigh the exact same. I completely understand, and I've experienced it as well. You're hopping on the scale. You did everything right all week. You're expecting a loss. You hop on the scale. It's either stays the same. It's up 0.2. It's up a pound. If you can't pinpoint the action that put the scale up, it's frustrating. Sometimes when the scale's up, we say, "Oh yeah, I remember I went to whatever." But if you get to the point where you don't really understand it, it does get you to a point where it can ruin your day. Completely get it. I completely understand. But the reality is, if you know the number, you can adjust that. If you hop on the scale and you say, okay, I'm 2 pounds up, then now you can then say, okay, what did I do this week and how does that impact the scale? Okay, it put me up 2 pounds. And now you'll be forced to make a change. But if you're waiting for someone to, if you get to the point where you never know the number, it could just start creeping out of control and you don't truly know. So I actually do disagree that, that as a practice, for me, it wouldn't work. For me, I needed to know the number and I made the adjustment based on it's data, right? It just reinforced what I was doing, or it told me to work harder at what I was doing to get the results that I wanted. So celebrate every little piece down, celebrate the fact that you weigh in is the victory in this journey. I tell you that more than once, showing up to the meeting, weighing in, hopping on the scale, and if you're an online member, hopping on the scale in your own right. It's like I said in mine is I weigh in every single day. It doesn't matter. I don't skip a weigh-in morning. And sometimes you'll see on my scale, it jumps 3 or 4 pounds overnight. Don't you think there are evenings when we go out, and I come in from, it happened a few months ago. At 1:00 in the morning, I found myself in a restaurant. I had a beer, had some wings, right? Clearly wasn't, aligned with the plan. On top of that, it's 1:00 in the morning, and I had to be up early in the morning. So the next morning at 5:00 in the morning, 6:00, whatever, I'm weighing back in. I'm positive that day, I could have skipped the weigh-in, but I knew that it was just data. And exactly like I knew, it put the scale up 4 or 5 pounds, whatever it was, I forget. And then that day I tracked because I said, okay, it's in the direction I don't want to go in. I tracked really well. And then as you see, it just continues to settle back in and go in the direction that I want. So own the number. It's your number. You weigh the same, whether you know it or not. If you know it, if you identified the problem, you can fix it. Hildy says, how do you keep the momentum going, not to get bored or restless after you set a goal and you reached it? Well, Hildy, you don't want to know how I do it because it'll cause you to be up till 1:00 in the morning most nights. But I continue to stay checked in with my wingman. Of course, I developed this podcast. I keep the website active. I lead 2 Weight Watcher meetings a week. All of that is because I love this community, but it's also because I love what this community did for me, and I don't ever want to give it back. So as I continue doing this, I know what my why is. The how will change for many of us. How we do this is that momentum. So think of you swinging, vine to vine through a jungle, and so the how is one rope to the next rope. So you do this for a little while, it works. And then as it starts teetering and starts heading the backwards, you grab the other vine and you propel yourself forward. That's what the how is. So for me, it started off as having the Facebook page and then adding Instagram and then adding Snapchat and then adding the podcast. I'm sure, and now it's the same thing. Trying to build this production thing that I'm trying to do is another how, and it's going to continue to keep that momentum going for me because I just continue to try to strive to do better in everything that I do. And when I recognize that things are kind of either slowing down or stalling, I don't want to go backwards, so I swing forward in the next direction. Annie says, I've been away from my meeting since December 3rd. We were gone until March. I elected to do online. I have completely lost my mojo and I'm in yo-yo mode. I've been all over the place, had been up 7 and had a loss last week. So I'm 3 away from where I weighed in on December 3rd. What do you do when your why doesn't do it? I hate not being at my meeting. I do weigh in with meeting buddies every Sunday, but the struggle is daunting. I've even gone back to paper tracking and pencil pre-tracking. I'm going through the motions. I want 2018 to be the year of lifetime. I want my mojo back, but I can't seem to find and grab a hold of it. Annie, go through the 5 questions. Let's get your why solidified. Why did you join? You didn't hop in on accident. You didn't just all of a sudden accidentally pull out your credit card and say, let me try this. You deliberately signed up for a reason. That reason wasn't your health. It wasn't to feel better. It was a little bit deeper than that. Because you've always wanted to be healthy. So therefore you have to go, okay, what does that mean? What's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? And do you believe this is easier than that or more difficult than that? Who is responsible for your success? You're responsible for your success. So you want 2018 to be the year of lifetime, but are you willing to take the actions it takes to make 2018 the year of lifetime? You can't rely on hope. You can't rely on luck. You can't just want this. You actually have to go get it. If you want it and you're willing to go get it, it's there. So you have to go after it and get it and get your mojo back and find it and grab hold of it. Now there's a couple different ways to do that. And one of them is, like I said, you go through those questions where you ask yourself, can I really honestly do this? Do I believe I can do it? And if you don't initially believe, that's okay. I didn't believe when I first started that this was possible, but I set small goals along the way that I could believe in. Do I believe I can make lifetime this year? I wasn't sure. It wasn't an immediate yes, so to me, that's a no. Do I believe I can attend a meeting next week? Yeah, I believe that. Do I believe I can attend a meeting next week? Yeah, I can do that. Do I believe I can track breakfast? Yeah, I can do that. So you have to find things you believe in. You have to know why you're doing this. And then you just absolutely just continue following the plan until you get it. Go to a meeting, check in with your group, stay connected. You can do this. There are so many successful people who've done this, and they're just regular people. There's nothing special about me. Right? I just knew what I wanted. And I asked myself often, are you really sick and tired? And yeah, I really am. Would you rather have pizza or would you rather make goal? Well, tonight I'd rather make goal. You know, would you rather go out tonight with friends and hang out and have fun, or would you rather stay home and wake up weighing less in the morning? Most days I choose way less in the morning, but I don't always get the answer correct. But I always ask the question, and more often than not, I get it right. So your mojo is here. I'm here to give it back to you. But you've got to unscrew the cap and drink it up. Go get goal. It's waiting for you. 2018 will be the year you make lifetime. Give up hope. Give up wanting luck and go get it. Tanny writes this, I really believe tracking is what got me to goal. Do you agree that it's very important, that it's a very important tool? And how important are goals? I absolutely believe tracking is the key, because tracking is what taught me how to control my portion size. So if before I was tracking, I could kind of guess at what I was eating. And then when I actually started putting it in the tracker, I realized I was actually overeating. So being accountable to what you eat is very, very important. But the most important piece that I think tracking did for me is when I had a week that I was successful, I could look back at the tracker and say, okay, could I duplicate that week if I needed to? I did. For instance, one of my strategies over the holidays was, as I looked at the meals, I have a week that I know that I can eat an entire week, and I do really well on plan. So when I face a scenario where I'm feeling like that, it could be a challenge, then I go back in the tracker and I look for that week and I mentally take note of what I had that week. And that is what I duplicate, the week after Christmas, let's just say. I've already proven that week works well for me. I've proven I like all the food. It's easy. So the beauty of the tracker is you have that data point to go back and reference to. So it's absolutely, and goals are important. But the goals have to be things you actually can do. You have to have control over your goal. You can't set a goal that you don't have the ability to stick to. And so my favorite one that people try and set to is, I want to lose 50 pounds by June 1st. You have no control over that. And so it happened to me on my journey as I set a number goal. I can't remember exactly, somewhere around 70 pounds. I said, I want to hit 70 pounds before our big event in July. Well, I came up on the event and I was 68 pounds down. I remember waking up that morning disappointed. How crazy is that? Down 68 pounds. And I was disappointed in myself because I missed a 70-pound weight loss goal. I have no ability to control how much my body sheds. I have every ability in choosing to eat healthy. I have every ability to get up and go for a walk. I have every ability to make it to a gym. So if you're going to set goals, which are very important on this journey, set a goal that you can hit. Measure it. Ask yourself every morning, is what I'm doing right now aligned with this goal? If you listen to the podcast interview I did on End of 3 Fitness Better Humanology podcast, I was interviewed on that a couple days ago. If you listen to that podcast, Jared Moon, shout out to him, he asked me, he asked me about goal setting, and he said in one of his goals was he wanted to get up every morning at 4:30 and read a book. And so now think about that. If that is your goal, do you have the capability to do that? You absolutely do. Any one of us could set that goal to set an alarm at 4:30 and wake up. But what we have to do during the day is we have to say, do the actions that I'm doing now support that goal or not? So if someone calls you at midnight and says, hey, Mike, do you want to go out tonight? And my goal is to wake up every single morning at 4:30, I have to decline the invitation at midnight to go hang out. That's how you set a goal. And so that's kind of an example of what is your goal? Ask yourself if the action supports it or if it hinders it. And when you, more often than not, when you make actions and make choices to take actions that support your goals, you accomplish them. And when you accomplish them, you hop on the scale, not wanting to lose any more weight. And then we celebrate. What is it that you're celebrating? Let's share it on the air. Go to fatdag.com, click on Wise Advice Podcast to send in your celebrations, your comments, your questions. I'll work them in as part of the show. You can always catch the show live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Wise Advice. That's the show handle. You'll absolutely know when the next live episode is, but it's absolutely fun to hang out with you. And I'm very, very proud of what you're doing. I want the world to know how awesome you are, how awesome we are together, and how amazing we all look at goal. Well, that's going to do it for this time. Remember that losing weight and getting healthy has nothing to do with luck. You have to remain disciplined and focused. Set your sights on your goal and go after it. I wish you good focus. Thank you for listening to the Wise Advice Podcast. Did you know for as little as $1 a month, you can take the next step as a wingman and support the show? Visit fatdag.com, click on Become a Patron today.